The dark feminine is something that every woman is born with. However, some of us have it active or deactivated. Some of us kept holding hands with our dark feminine. Some of us have let it go. But what you need to know is that the dark feminine is something that was instilled in us from birth with the purpose for us to use it throughout our life. And the purpose of the dark feminine is to help us to preserve ourselves, our well-being, and to empower ourselves and our authenticity. Welcome back to Goddessy. I'm Tiffany. It is a dark feminine that transforms a woman's life from struggle to triumph. When you see a woman who holds her own, who is not afraid to honor herself, honor her truth, that woman in that moment has her dark feminine energy activated. In this video, we're going to talk about the purpose of the dark feminine. So we're going to go into the ways our dark feminine energy helps us to preserve ourselves and empower our authenticity. If you want to explore more about it, you can check out the blog post and the link is in the description box. Our dark feminine energy is our birthright. It exists solely to serve us, and we have to have it activated. If it's deactivated, you'll find that you feel like people take you for granted. People take advantage of your kindness and your thoughtfulness and your compassion and your nurturing, which are all great qualities of the feminine. But if the dark feminine is inactive or dormant, you will be abused, which is why the dark feminine needs to be activated so that you can restore balance within yourself and within your life so that you can be that feminine woman in the best way possible, to the point where you get the job done, but then you're not drained, you're not overused. So the dark feminine is every single woman's birthright. Every woman needs to have it activated in her life so that she can have a balance and harmony in her everyday life. And then this just brings me to my favorite quote, and I think it encompasses the idea of the dark feminine perfectly. Your job throughout your life is to disappoint as many people as it takes to avoid disappointing yourself. And that is the issue with most women, is that they're so caught up with not wanting to disappoint others that they disappoint themselves. They're so caught up with wanting to look out for others that they end up not looking out for themselves. So everybody is covered, everybody is tended to, but then you get neglected. But the truth is, that's not their fault. It's your responsibility to make sure that you're good. And that's where the activated or the reactivated dark feminine comes in. You have to reactivate your dark feminine energy in order to have the guts, to have the confidence, and to feel and to know that you have the right to preserve yourself. You have the right to empower yourself and your truth. So do know that we all have access to our dark feminine energy, and it is our responsibility to reactivate it if we have found that it is dormant, that is inactive. It's our responsibility to get it to come back online, to have it within reach, for it to be accessible for us to use when the moment arises. So now we're going to talk about the ways our dark feminine energy helps us to preserve ourselves and to empower our authenticity. Self-preservation is the ability and the habit of protecting, of maintaining, caring, safeguarding, sustaining, continuing, keeping alive, and sustaining oneself. Like, this is a natural human trait. This is a natural living being trait. Like, you have every right to ensure that you're good. You have every right to ensure that you are preserved, that you're healthy, that you continue to live, that you continue to be able to move your limbs. Your mental reality is good, that your emotional state is good. Like, that's what self-preservation is to ensure that you are good, that the vessel that you are is all right and has everything that it needs to continue living in this reality. That's self-preservation. Self-empowerment means to give oneself power and authority to do something. This is where our feminine confidence and boldness comes from. This is where we get the life that we want to live. We get the job that we want, create the family that we want, we create the reality that we want. Like, this is self-empowerment, where you empower yourself and you give yourself the right, the authority, and the power to do what you want to do, because you have that right. You have that right to live life in a way that is best for you. Now that we have covered what self-preservation is and self-empowerment is, now we're going to go over how our dark feminine energy helps us to do these things, helps us to self-preserve and self-empower. You get really cozy, really comfortable with the word no. And then sometimes it's not even just the word, it's just the stance, it's just the energy. Like one of my favorite YouTubers, Mina Irfan, says the energetic middle finger. Sometimes you don't have to say anything, it's just you embody no. You embody that boundary. The light feminine is a yes woman. I think she is. We are majorly in our light feminine energy, and we have a problem with saying yes when we don't mean to say yes, and not saying no when we mean to say no. So the dark feminine aspect of ourselves helps us to say no, because remember, the purpose of the dark feminine is to preserve and empower ourselves. So times when you say no, it's because you need to say no. It's because you need to tend to your energy. You need to tend to your health. You need to tend to your needs. That's when no will come up. It's like, hey, can you help me move? And it's like, no, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. But a lot of women who know they don't have the bandwidth for it, they're going to be so scared to say no because, oh my God, I need to be a good friend or a sister or whatever. I can't say no. That will make me a bad friend. So it's a yes. And then you're going there with your half dead body, moving furniture, and then a couple weeks or a couple months later, you find yourself in the hospital because of exhaustion or dehydration or whatever, or some other disease that develops because you didn't tend to your needs at that moment. When your dark feminine is active, you get really comfortable with saying no, and it is a necessary ability. The ability to say no is highly necessary. Because I won't even say other women, like I can tell you this literally happened to me where I burnt out because I just would not say no. From that, like when that happened, that is when my awakening started. That's when I realized that, listen, like if I don't take care of myself, I can really fuck myself up. That's when it became obvious and evident that like my well-being is my responsibility. Like I need to take care of me. It's my responsibility to make sure that I am good, because nobody else is going to do it, and it's nobody else's responsibility. It's my responsibility, because everybody is busy taking care of themselves, as they should. The best person to take care of you is you, so that everybody else is free to take care of themselves. I learned that the hard way. That was a wake-up call for me. And then just to show you that like not saying no, not setting boundaries caused me to have to say no and have to set boundaries, because medically I could not be doing anything. Medically I had to stay home. Medically I had to say no. I can't come out anymore. I can't show up to work. I can't show up to school because medically I need to rest. Not saying no is just delaying a forced no, because it became a forced no. Having your dark feminine energy activated helped us to get real comfortable with saying no. I was saying no, but then I would get pulled out of it. I would say, no, I'm too tired. I'm like, oh, come on, let's go. And it's like, okay, yeah. So that moves me to my next point. Your dark feminine energy helps you to become immovable when you must be, yet movable when you need to be. So this comes down to discernment, which is a trait of dark feminine energy. Being able to discern, knowing what each situation needs, and having the ability to consider everything. Consider yourself and consider all that's involved. That can look like knowing when people need you and knowing when they don't need you, even though they want to need you, even though they might want you to feel like they do need you. Having that discernment to know, like, you know what, they'll be okay. You know what, this is their responsibility to fix this, not mine. And then also knowing, like, you know what, this person does need my help right now. I'll show up for them. And that's one of the issues with women who don't have their dark feminine energy activated, is that they don't know to discern that. They don't know how to discern knowing what is your responsibility and what is not your responsibility. So like, for example, your children are your responsibility. A grown-ass adult is not your responsibility. When you're helping an adult, it should always be in a way that's empowering, where I'm helping you get on your feet, not helping you where you need to remain dependent on me. And that happens a lot. You give a man fish, you feed him for a day. You teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. This is an art form where you know when to be flexible and when to not be flexible, when to stand your ground and when to be adaptable. It's also like speaks into boundaries and values. It's like yeah, you go with the flow and everything, but when it comes to certain things, you don't cross the line. You don't really like the club, but your friend wants you to come out with you and you want to honor your friendship. So yeah, you go to the club with your friend, have fun, and you do have fun, you know. But then no, she wants to go to this random guy's house after, and that's just a no-no for you. Then you are immovable in that space. So you're movable where you went to the club, it's okay, fine. It's not really violating your preferences or your beliefs or your values. It's not like a serious violation, but going to a strange man's house at 3 a.m. in the morning is a violation of your boundaries and your values. And so you're immovable on that part. And that goes into the other way that our dark feminine energy helps us to preserve and empower ourselves is set boundaries, honey. That's one of many ways our dark feminine helps us to preserve ourselves. We have clear values for ourselves, clear preferences, and we do not cross the line. We don't violate it and we don't allow others to violate it. And so a boundary can be you date in the Western world, you go out with men. I mean, you kind of have to, but then your boundary is I'm not having sex before I get married. I'm only gonna have sex with my husband. You stick with that boundary and you don't violate it yourself. You don't violate it yourself by not putting yourself in situations where it can be misconstrued that that's a possibility, or where if you feel like you're not strong enough to resist because it's a recent decision of yours, then the boundary for you to not cross is to not put yourself in positions where you having sex before marriage can happen. So you don't go to his place at all. You don't go anywhere where the both of you are alone and it can happen. You just set boundaries. You don't get flued out because that usually is expected. When a man flies you out to another state, another country, it is expected for the most part. But then that just comes down to discernment, because there are instances where, and some men that do respect that boundary, but then you have men that will tell you, oh yeah, I respect that boundary, but they will still try to let it happen. And then, you know, that's gonna take me to another way our dark feminine energy helps us to preserve ourselves and empower ourselves is introspection. When your dark feminine energy is active, a habit then develops where you become more introspective. Introspective means to be inward looking, and this enables you to self-analyze, to self-examine, to self-observe, and to be contemplative and thoughtful about oneself. And then from introspection, this is where like you learn what your value system is, what your boundaries are, or to even reevaluate what you thought your boundaries are, what your preference, interests, passions are, what your value system is. It will become a habit when your dark feminine energy is activated. And this helps you to just be a sensible human being. You know what I mean? Because even though I'm speaking to the benefits of the dark feminine, and of course there are many benefits, but you're still a human being, and you're a female human being at that. And so you'll always be evolving, you'll always be expanding, you'll always be changing things. You know, like your preferences will change, your ideals will change, your values will change, because that's just the nature of life. That's the nature of being a living being, and that is certainly the nature of being a woman, being a feminine being. The benefit of being introspective is self-improvement. You're naturally just going to improve yourself because you will be observing and correcting and analyzing yourself and seeing in which ways you could improve how you respond to certain things, how you approach certain situations, how you go about accomplishing your goals, and just overall making necessary changes where you see fit. Because when you're in your dark feminine, you're able to be authentic with yourself. And another really good thing about being introspective is that it frees others in your life from having to worry about you, to be honest, because you will be doing the work in checking yourself. Because when you're introspective, like you just have the habit of like, okay, how do I feel about what I said to that person today? How do I feel about how I expressed myself? How do I feel about this relationship that I'm currently in? How do I really feel about it? Like introspection helps you to connect your conscious self with your authentic higher self. And so when you're introspective, you find that you're able to see things from a higher perspective and to see through the lens of love and empowerment and expansion and evolution. And so this saves your loved ones from having to do an intervention, from having to give you a reality check, because you're doing that. You're checking in with yourself all the time. And so your loved ones will just see you self-correcting for the most part. They might say one or two things that you might not notice, but for the most part, they won't have to like organize an intervention where they have to sit you down and say, hey, you're going down the wrong path. You know what I mean? The people in your life, your loved ones, they don't have to worry about you as much because you're doing the work to be a sensible human being and to live in a way where you're able to be in this world, yet still honor yourself and your truth. Now, speaking of honoring yourself and your truth, the other way that our dark feminine energy helps us to preserve and empower ourselves is that you tend to honor your authenticity. So once you have your dark feminine energy reactivated, like your true authentic self just comes to the forefront. Because in order for your dark feminine to be active, or for you to have gone through the process of reactivating your dark feminine energy, you would have sat with yourself, gone face to face with yourself. And so in order for your dark feminine to be accessible, it literally means your individuality is active, it's present. And so because your individuality and your truth is present, you can't help but honor it because you're much more aware of it. You know that it exists. It's now more conscious. It's to the forefront. And so you just can't help but honor it. Or if you find yourself in moments, even after your dark feminine is activated, because like I said, you're a human being. So sometimes like the things that you become aware of and the things that you have put in place, like sometimes it gets challenged because life. But the key is that once your dark feminine is active, you have the ability and the resources and the habit to check in with yourself and reconnect with yourself and re-honor yourself. So even if you end up in a moment where you find that you have dishonored your truth and your authenticity, it tugs at you. It's not something that can be swept under the rug anymore, like when you're just in your light feminine energy. Like it's just something that is so obvious to you that it literally tugs and nags at you and it eats at you. Like you cannot help but honor your authenticity. There's no ignoring your truth once your dark feminine is activated. That doesn't happen. It might happen for a moment, but even when that happens for a moment and then you go into introspection, because that happens a lot when your dark feminine is active, when you go into introspection, it bothers you, and then you just can't help but have the need and the desire to redeem yourself by ensuring that it never happens again, or correcting it, or re-establishing boundaries or preferences or interests, in whatever way. And also like our dark feminine energy, like it ignites our intrinsic need to be happy and fulfilled and stimulated, because remember, the dark feminine serves the individuality of the woman. So that aspect is there. So in order for you to be happy, to be fulfilled, you have to be honoring your truths. You have to be honoring the aspects of yourself that are authentic. And so you find that in whatever situation that you're in or whatever you're faced with, like you have to honor you have to honor your authenticity. You have to honor your truth. And the dark feminine, it gives us space and permission to see ourselves for who we really are and love ourselves simply because of it. And that's another thing, like our dark feminine energy leads us to self-love, because you get to remember who you really are, and you get to meet with her, and you realize the blessing that she is and the power that she holds, and like you just cannot help but honor it. You can't help but honor her. And honoring your authenticity, it empowers you to have this state of being, to preserve yourself, because in that state you just cannot put your truth on the back burner. You just can't, because in order for you to preserve yourself, like your truth has to be honored. Your truth has to have a space in your life. It has to have a space in the world, because there's no honor in yourself and disregarding your truth. Because in one of the books that I've read, one of the quotes which I love, it's like, it's impossible to respect yourself and tolerate disrespect at the same time. Like it's completely impossible. And so if you see that you tolerate disrespect, that is a major sign to you that you do not love yourself. Of course, you have an intrinsic love for yourself, it's natural, but in terms of like on a day-to-day basis where you actively love yourself, because once your dark feminine energy is active, you love yourself. You love yourself. You can't help but love yourself because your authenticity come to the forefront. And even if like authentic aspects of yourself is not put on display for others to see and admire or whatever, like you're authentic for you. The point is that you honor your authenticity. Like you know what your truth is, and so that fire burning for your authentic self, it's there, it's in your hand, and you're doing what you need to do to ensure that like you can fully live in it. So you might not be able to outwardly honor it right now because of your environment, because of your current circle and whatever. You honor it just by being aware of it. You honor it by just saying, I know you're there, I love who you are, and I intend to live through you in this lifetime. And it's the most important one to, like, before you can even share yourself with the world, you have to share yourself with you. Like, you have to honor your truth with you before you can display, like, honor your truth with the world. Like, it starts with you. Like I said, the dark feminine is the inner world and self-focused aspect of feminine energy. That's what the dark feminine is. So all of this work, all of these benefits, all of these superpowers, it becomes evident to you first before anybody else is able to witness it or enjoy it or benefit from it. It starts with you first. The purpose of the dark feminine is to help women preserve their well-being and empower their authenticity throughout their daily lives. While there are many expressions of dark feminine energy, you can look dark feminine and not have your dark feminine energy activated. Just like how you can look light feminine but be full on dark feminine. Beyonce, I would say she has a light feminine look, but her dark feminine is active. Rihanna has a dark feminine look, but her dark feminine is also active. You know what I mean? So it's not just an aesthetic. The aesthetic is a manifestation of the dark feminine, but that's not what determines if you are in your dark feminine or not. What determines that is the quality of your life, the quality of your relationships, and most importantly, do you disappoint yourself? I think that's like the major determining factor of whether your dark feminine is active or not. Do you disappoint yourself just so you don't disappoint other people? And how often do you do that? Does that happen often? Do you feel like you're a doormat sometimes? Do you feel like people use you and throw you away? Those are signs that your dark feminine energy is not active. And so I implore you to start playing with it, because like I said, every woman has a dark feminine. It's just a matter of whether it is active or inactive, dormant or accessible. So, I implore you to start exploring that and to not be scared to explore your dark feminine energy. And I know that a lot of women have a resistance to it because of many things that have happened in the past, and that's why I'm going to make that a video about the history of the rejection of the dark feminine energy, why women have rejected this aspect of themselves, which also caused them to become a doormat in society. So I'll be working on that video next, and it'll be linked in the description box once it's up and ready and available for you to see. So thank you guys so much for watching. Welcome and welcome back to Goddess. My name is Tiffany. I will see you in the next video. Mwah.